The day we brought Lily home was the happiest of my life. After 5 years of fertility treatments, 3 miscarriages, and countless tears, Sarah and I had finally become parents. At 18 months old, Lily was perfect. Dark curls, bright blue eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and tiny dimples that appeared with each smile. The adoption process had been grueling, but the moment the social worker placed her in my arms, I knew every sleepless night and mountain of paperwork had been worth it. "She's really ours now," Sarah whispered as we tucked Lily into her crib that first night. Her fingers trembled as she brushed a curl from our daughter's forehead. "I keep thinking someone's going to show up and take her away." I wrapped my arm around my wife's shoulders. "No one's taking her anywhere. She's home." We'd been told Lily's birth mother was a college student who couldn't provide for a child. The father was listed as unknown. A closed adoption, clean, simple, final. We respected the birth mother's privacy and were grateful for her decision, but our focus was on the future, not the past. For 2 years, our little family thrived. Lily grew from a toddler into a chatty preschooler with an insatiable curiosity and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Sarah returned to teaching part-time, and I adjusted my hours at the architectural firm to ensure one of us was always home with Lily. We moved to a house with a yard in a good school district. Life was everything we'd dreamed of during those dark years of waiting. Then came the letter that changed everything. It arrived on a Tuesday, nestled between bills and advertisements. No return address, just a plain white envelope with my name scrawled across the front. I almost tossed it with the junk mail. "I know about Lily," the letter began. My heart stopped. "I know you think she was a legal adoption, but you've been lied to. Her mother didn't give her up willingly. Ask your agency about case hash. J397. If you care about your daughter, you'll want to know the truth." It wasn't signed. My first instinct was to throw it away. Some cruel joke or scam. But I couldn't stop staring at that case number, couldn't shake the cold dread seeping into my bones. I didn't tell Sarah that night. What was the point of worrying her without any real information? Instead, I called our adoption agency first thing the next morning, requesting to speak with Marianne Wells, the social worker who had handled Lily's case. "I'm sorry, Mr. Connors, but Marianne no longer works here," the receptionist informed me. "She left rather suddenly about a year ago. Is there something I can help you with?" I hesitated. "I need some information about our adoption. Case number J397. A pause, too long to be normal. "Can I ask what this is regarding?" "Just some questions about Lily's background, medical history," I lied. "I'll have someone call you back," she said briskly. No one did. 3 days later, after multiple unanswered calls to the agency, I took a personal day and drove to their offices. The receptionist looked panicked when I introduced myself. "Mr. Connors, we don't have any additional information about your case," she insisted. "Everything was provided to you at the time of adoption." "Then you won't mind if I look at the file myself," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I have a right to see my daughter's adoption records." "Those records are confidential." "They're my records," I interrupted, "and I'm not leaving until I see them." Eventually they relented, but the file they produced was suspiciously thin. Basic details about Lily's health at the time of placement, signed consent forms, court documents finalizing the adoption. Nothing about her birth parents beyond what we already knew. No indication of why our case was labeled J397 when the other file numbers followed a completely different format. That night, I finally showed Sarah the letter. I expected panic, tears, perhaps anger that I'd kept it from her for days. Instead, she grew very still, her face pale in the kitchen's harsh light. "We need to know, James," she said finally. "If something wasn't right with Lily's adoption." "It was legal," I insisted. "We have the paperwork, the court's approval." "Paperwork can be falsified." Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she refolded the letter. What if her mother's out there looking for her? What if she didn't choose to give Lily up? The thought made me sick. We'd built our family's happiness potentially on someone else's tragedy. "What do we do?" I asked. "We find out the truth." Sarah's expression hardened with determination. "Whatever it costs." The next day, Sarah stayed home with Lily while I visited Marianne Wells' last known address, a small apartment about 30 miles away. The current tenant had no information, but an elderly neighbor remembered her. Nice woman, quiet. Left in a hurry, though. Middle of the night type thing. The neighbor squinted at me. You, family? Just a former client, I said. Did she mention where she was going? He shook his head. But she was scared of something, I'll tell you that. Or someone. I left my number, asking him to call if he remembered anything else. It felt like clutching at straws, but what choice did we have? That evening, after Lily was asleep, Sarah and I sat at the kitchen table with a bottle of wine, trying to formulate a plan. I could hire a private investigator, I suggested. Someone who specializes in finding people. Sarah nodded slowly. And I could take some time off, do some research myself. There must be records somewhere of Lily's birth. Her original birth certificate. What if we don't like what we find? The question that had been haunting me finally escaped. What if Lily wasn't legally available for adoption? What if her birth mother wants her back? Sarah's face crumpled. I can't think about that. I can't. I reached across the table for her hand. We'll fight. Whatever happens, Lily is our daughter now. But is that fair? Sarah whispered. If her mother didn't choose to give her up? We had no answers, just the heavy weight of uncertainty, where once there had been joy. The next morning, a thick manila envelope was on our doorstep. No postmark, no return address. Someone had delivered it by hand. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. The truth about Marianne Wells and New Life adoptions. Be careful who you trust. Sarah's hands trembled as she plugged the drive into her laptop. The screen filled with documents, internal emails, financial records, and a list of adoption cases, including ours. Oh my God, Sarah gasped, pointing at the screen. James, look at this. The email thread displayed showed correspondence between Marianne Wells and someone identified only as Director. They were discussing several children, including a female toddler, 18 months, case J397. Client willing to pay premium for expedited placement. Mother situation handled. No complications expected. My blood ran cold. Mother situation handled? What does that mean? Sarah scrolled through more documents. These financial records, there are payments, large ones, around the time of each adoption, including ours. Her voice broke. James, I think they were selling babies. Before I could respond, there was a sharp knock at our front door. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, tall, thin, her dark hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. Something about her stance, her alertness, screamed law enforcement. Mr. and Mrs. Connors, she called through the door. My name is Agent Rebecca Taylor with the FBI. I need to speak with you about New Life adoptions and your daughter Lily. My heart hammered against my ribs as I looked at Sarah. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she nodded. I opened the door. Agent Taylor showed us her credentials before stepping inside. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that took in everything, including Sarah's laptop with the incriminating documents still displayed. I see someone's already contacted you, she said, nodding toward the screen. Who sent this? I demanded. What's happening with our adoption agency? Agent Taylor sat on our couch, her posture rigid. We've been investigating New Life adoptions for nearly 2 years. Marianne Wells was our confidential informant until she disappeared 6 months ago. Disappeared? Sarah's voice quavered. We believe she was silenced. Agent Taylor's expression was grim. New Life isn't just an adoption agency. It's a front for a sophisticated human trafficking operation targeting vulnerable women and their children. The room seemed to tilt. I steadied myself against the wall. Are you saying Lily was trafficked? Your case is one of 27 we're investigating. She pulled out a tablet, tapped through some files. Case J397, yes. According to Marianne's information, Lily's birth mother never consented to the adoption. Sarah made a small, wounded sound. Then how did they get her? The operation targets women in precarious situations, usually undocumented immigrants, women in abusive relationships, or those with substance abuse issues. They offer shelter and support through what appears to be a legitimate charity, then pressure the women to sign paperwork they don't understand or, in some cases, forge signatures. I felt physically ill. And Lily's mother? Her name is Elena Vasquez. She was 22, undocumented. working 3 jobs to support herself and her daughter after fleeing an abusive relationship in her home country. Agent Taylor's voice softened slightly. She came home from work one day to find her apartment empty and her babysitter claiming Elena had sent someone to pick up the child. Sarah began to cry silently. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Elena reported her daughter missing, but without proper documentation, she was afraid to push too hard with authorities. The local police filed a report, but Agent Taylor shrugged. The system failed her. Does she know where Lily is now? I finally managed to ask. No, that's part of why I'm here. We need your help. Our help? Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face. You want us to give up our daughter? Agent Taylor leaned forward. Mrs. Connors, I understand this is devastating news, but you must understand. You and your husband are victims in this scenario too. New Life deliberately misled you. That doesn't change the fact that we've raised Lily for 2 years, I said. She knows us as her parents. We are her parents. Legally, the adoption may be invalidated if it's proven that the birth mother's consent was obtained fraudulently, Agent Taylor explained gently. But our immediate concern is building a case against New Life. They're still operating, still separating families. Sarah wiped her tears, her grief giving way to anger. What exactly do you want from us? Testimony. Access to any communications you had with Marianne Wells or other agency staff, and she hesitated. Eventually, a meeting with Elena Vasquez. The thought of coming face to face with Lily's birth mother, a woman who had been searching for her stolen child while we'd been celebrating birthdays and first words, was almost unimaginable. We need time, I said, to process this, to figure out what's best for Lily. Agent Taylor nodded, handing us her card. I understand, but please don't wait too long, and don't contact New Life. If they suspect you know anything, you could be in danger. After she left, Sarah and I sat in stunned silence until Lily's voice came through the baby monitor. Mama, Daddy? We found her sitting up in bed, her stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. Bad dream, she murmured, as Sarah gathered her into her arms. It's okay, sweetheart, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. We're here. That night, neither of us slept. We talked in hushed tones about impossible choices, about what it meant to truly love a child, about justice and heartbreak and the terrible weight of privilege. We have to meet her, Sarah said as dawn broke. Elena, we have to hear her story directly. I nodded, knowing she was right, but terrified of what would come after. Agent Taylor arranged the meeting at a neutral location, a private room in a community center downtown. Sarah and I arrived early, leaving Lily with my parents, who knew nothing of the situation. Elena Vasquez was small, with the same dark curls as Lily, and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She entered the room cautiously, as if expecting a trap. Mr. and Mrs. Connors, Agent Taylor introduced us, and this is Elena Vasquez. For a long moment, no one spoke. What could we possibly say to this woman whose child we had unknowingly taken? Finally, Elena broke the silence. You have my Gabriella. Her voice was quiet but steady. They told me she was dead. For months, they told me she had died, until one of the women who worked there confessed the truth. We didn't know, Sarah said, tears spilling down her cheeks. Please believe that we didn't know. Elena nodded slowly. Agent Taylor explained, you thought it was legal. We call her Lily, I said, then immediately regretted it when pain flashed across Elena's face. She's wonderful. Smart and funny and kind. Elena's composure cracked slightly. Is she happy? Very, Sarah whispered. She's very loved. Can I see a picture? Elena asked, her voice barely audible. Sarah pulled out her phone with trembling hands, finding a recent photo of Lily at the park. Her face split with laughter as she came down a slide. Elena stared at the image, her fingers hovering over the screen as if she could touch her daughter through the glass. She looks like my sister, she said softly. The conversation that followed was the hardest of my life. Elena told us about Gabriella's birth, about singing her to sleep each night despite her exhaustion, about the terror of coming home to an empty apartment and the despair that followed. She spoke without accusation, her story a simple recitation of facts that cut deeper than any blame could have. In turn, we told her about Lily's life with us, her favorite foods, her budding personality, the security and love she'd known. With each word, the impossible reality of our situation became clearer. Two families who loved the same child, both believing she was rightfully theirs. What happens now? I finally asked Agent Taylor when there was nothing left to say. That depends partly on you, she replied. Elena has a legal claim to her daughter, but challenging the adoption could mean years of litigation, with Lily caught in the middle. Elena spoke up, her voice stronger now. I don't want to hurt Gabriella. Lily, she doesn't know me. We don't want to keep her from you, Sarah said, surprising me. You're her mother, too. A week later, after countless discussions with Agent Taylor, family lawyers, and therapists specializing in adoption trauma, we reached an agreement that no one thought would work, but everyone agreed to try. A gradual transition that would allow Lily to know her birth mother without traumatic disruption to her life. It began with short visits. Elena coming to our home as a family friend, spending time with Lily, while Sarah and I remained present. Over months, these visits lengthened, and Elena became Mama Elena, a special person in Lily's expanding world. The legal aspects were complex. Elena gained official visitation rights, while we maintained primary custody. The adoption agency's principals were arrested, their assets frozen, and dozens of affected families contacted. Today, 2 years later, our family looks nothing like what Sarah and I imagined when we first applied to adopt. We live 10 minutes from Elena, who has obtained legal residency through a special visa program for crime victims. Lily, now 5, spends weekends at Mama Elena's apartment and knows a simplified version of her story, that she grew in Elena's tummy, but Sarah and I became her parents when Elena needed help. It isn't perfect. There are difficult days when boundaries blur and hearts ache, but there is also an unexpected richness to our expanded family. The way Lily now knows her heritage, the healing that comes from choosing compassion over conflict, the profound understanding that love isn't diminished when shared. We didn't just adopt a child and discover her real parents. We discovered that real parents are those who put a child's needs above their own breaking hearts, who find a way forward when there is no map, who redefine family not by blood or law, but by love and courage and an unwavering commitment to a little girl who deserves all the family she can get.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.